Thank you very much. It is a great pleasure and honor to be here. Thank you, the IHEAM. Raul is amazing that what the Institute is achieving with these efforts. This is fantastic to have gathered experts from all over the world. And thank you, Antonio, for organizing everything in the seminar, all the contents. And my two great colleagues, Agustin and Jorge, for being here, because I have had the pleasure to collaborate with many remarkable people in the world. And the work that I do is not my work, is collective work. And I'll show you a few examples of what I do and a few thoughts. So when I was told to give a seminar, climate change and agriculture in the Mediterranean, and I saw the content and I saw the participants here, I said, I cannot say too many things that they were not going to be said during the seminar. Everybody has an expertise, and that's what they're here. That's what Raul said, is the IHEAM trains leaders, and you all know probably much more than me in all the aspects of climate change and agriculture. So I am an academic, so what I'm going to share with you is a few thoughts and examples from the academic side. And we are in academic, we are an arbiter of the interest of many people and many voices. So really, when I work, I feel like I'm listening to many voices. And that's what I want to share with you. So I will present 5 points. And the first one is about perception of the damage. When I was listening to Raul say human capital, and that's the important thing about the Institute. So human capital defines the perception that we have on one issue. And I'm going to share with you a thought of a German philosopher of the 18th century, Goethe, that Goethe say, people hear only what they understand. So the mission of the IHEAM is to train people so they can understand better the issues. So that's what I thought about that. So then this is the understanding. Does it mean everything for everybody? And even does it mean everything for every region? Climate change, mitigation of adaptation. And the examples I'm going to give is from my own work. And we had a big project on adaptation called BASE, was bottom-up adaptation. Also, the BC3 was involved in this project. So this is all not my work, sorry, it's collective work. Do we mean the same thing? Do we listen to the same voice when we want to adapt or we want to mitigate in every region? So what we learn in this project is that solutions are context specific. And that's what is wonderful about all of you being here, because you are bringing your own concept, your own context to the solutions that we want to implement. We don't mean the same thing with the same words. That's what the framework conventions are so difficult to implement, because we have to listen to the context, not only the words in one region. And we have explored the different voices. And this is an example with one of my former students that now is my colleague, Silvestre García de Jalón, that we wanted to explore what adaptation means. And we work in Africa, we work in the Mediterranean. This is a particular case in southern Spain with wetlands. Wetlands are really critical for climate change adaptation and water management in the Mediterranean. So we try to understand in a natural protected area with wetlands and in an area that doesn't have this biodiversity interaction and challenges, what does adaptation mean for climate change? And the public support is really linked to education. So that's what, again, listening to that and trying to understand what Goethe said, we only hear what we understand. People hear the need to adapt, the need to mitigate, and it's very highly correlated to the level of education of the audience. And that's what these training courses are really unbelievable, very remarkable. Now, then the second thought is, fine, we understand the concept, but then we need to measure something, because policies are often ex ante, and we say, oh, if we do that, this will happen, but is that real? How do we believe we have to measure something that is not there. And here I'm going to refer to the work that I have done with Jorge Alvaro, which is here, Fuentes, and with another of my PhD students, Berta Sanchez, that now works in the European Commission, that they try to understand the potential for cost and effectiveness of the mitigation options and try to monetize that environmental gain. And this particular case study was in Zaragoza, which is here. And this is our paper. And here we quantify in the x-axis how much do we gain in terms of mitigation and what is the cost. And you can see there are negative bars in that graph because some of the mitigation measures are not costly. They're saving money to the farmer. But the farmer needs, remember the first one, to understand something that's not there. Okay, they need to understand the measurements at the scientific level. We need to better communicate that. And with that, we can screen adaptation options that they have different levels of mitigation potential, low, medium, or high mitigation potential. And we can go from fully adaptation in agricultural systems with supplemental irrigation, but that has very low mitigation potential, even negative mitigation potential, to other things that incentives for saving policy, policy incentive for saving water, that's a measure that's in green, that is environmental measures. So we start thinking about systems. We don't stop only in the irrigation. We don't stop only on different aspects, on soil management. We have to start thinking systemically. What is the effect on something that we can say, add supplemental water with an added color, the mitigation potential. We start thinking like that. In Spain, there is a terrific project, which I am also involved, which is called Secanos Vivos, alive dry lands, that is managed by SEO BirdLife, a big NGO in Spain. And we are putting together a catalog of measures to put in practice. We're working with farmers, with 25 farmers in Spain, in cereal production and in viticulture, to define this range of measures that have mitigation potential and also adaptation potential, and they're defined for the local context and solutions. In this respect of measuring things that are not quite there to develop policy, I am also involved in the Nova Soil project, where we have case studies of business models. That's not only policies. We have to go beyond the policy. We have to go to the private sector of business models that work to create adaptation and mitigation measures. And in Spain, we work with olive trees and in Andalusia. And we also work with wine producers in Rueda level in case study. So involving all the citizens is good and training to understand what models tell us and how can those models help us derive coherent policies that assist everybody. Then the third thought is really new, but I think we need to include the citizens. The citizens are providing science. Artificial intelligence is now a very potent tool to bring all these citizen science together. Up to a few years ago, we just didn't understand how the public thought. But now we have this tremendous artificial intelligence tool that assist us in understanding what the policies really want. Before it was surveys and this and that, time consuming, but now we click and we have all these Twitters that now is called X, and we have all this information about what citizens believe. And we are working in a very interesting project also with Agustin Center, the Basque Center for Climate Change, is the Switch project, to understand how citizens perceive that the diet is sustainable, is healthy, it helps the planet, and it helps the health of the people. This is systemic again, is the health of the people and the health of the planet. And we are working with citizen science to understand what do Europeans eat and drink, and why do they make that choices, and why are those choices sustainable from the environmental point of view, ethical from the point of view of the income, and they don't leave anybody behind. That's the idea, that we don't want to promote diets that are only accessible to people with a level of income. So we have demonstrators. One of them is in the Basque Country, the Basque Culinary Center. Then we are working in upscaling what we learned from the demonstrators with FAO data, with EFSA data, with we have more than 100,000 surveys of citizens, and then to derive policies that support transitions. But this is really bottom-up transitions, are the choices of the people, what they eat and drink, and why that they believe that is sustainable. Then, it adds layers of complication. We measure something that's not there, the perception matters, then the citizens think maybe something different from what we thought from the theoretical point of view. Can we be optimistic with all of this? I really think we can be optimistic because knowledge, and that's what is a pleasure to be in the CIHEAM, which is a knowledge center. Knowledge leads cultural change and needs governance change and cooperation. And this is an example of cooperation of the network you want to create here. Understanding nature-based solutions, understanding many things. And that knowledge is really the key of, I think, from my point of view, of the optimism. The second point for my optimism is, I think industry is really innovative and is responding to people and policy. And in particular, food industry, I think is very well informed about the choices that people make and is responding. And we have to pay more attention to what industry means in terms of waste, of packaging, of dates, safe by date. And we have to make more effort in the mitigation network. I think I encourage you to include supermarkets and all these players that are making a difference also in the response and the mitigation. And I think policy is also interesting, is leading the change, but I think it's slow leading the change. In my view, and I don't want to be critical, and I'm going to be critical, okay? Policy is behind citizens and is behind industry. Is derived from the citizen choices, and is derived from the policy lobbying, but policy relies too much on consultants, and I think consultants are not the best actors to come up with good ideas. And somebody that maybe is 30 years old and working in McKinsey and is informing a government, it doesn't have the knowledge. Recently, I was in the FIAB and I said this in public, and I was appalled and distressed at the low level of the report that they produced for mitigation made by a consultancy firm. It was, I mean, not even my worst student turns a paper like that. And they pay, I don't know how many thousands of dollars. So we have to be strong, and we have to have a voice. It's very easy to criticize academics because we don't understand them, because they speak blah, 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 because they write papers that nobody cares. And but we have civil servants, they don't work, they're lazy, and all of these things. But I think consultants are driving policy in a very bad way. And I'm not the only one to say. I will share my thoughts to whoever wants to hear. So with all of that, this is my last point. What is the conclusion? So what's my views from the academic side? So from the academic side, this is what I'm going to share comes from one of the latest publications with knowledge architecture for sustainability transition. Very interesting. I collaborated here with Ángel Borja, which is from ASTI, which is a wonderful institution in Spain, in the Basque Country, that works on climate change. So the solutions, of course, they need to be green. They need to be circular economy, everything. They have to be healthy. It's one health. It's not agriculture. It's not people. It's one health. It's farm to fork. They have to be systemic. They have to be fair. They have to be resilient. But we have ethical considerations as well that they're very often not taken into account in these segmented sectoral efforts that we are looking at. So we have to look at changes in behavior. We have to look in long term, beyond the political cycle, and that's very difficult. So one of my students last week, they presented me a study, in Doñana, because this party, and I say, no, this is not what we need to listen in this class. We are in academics, we are beyond that. Politics and policy are not the same. We need more policies, we need less politics into our solution. And long-term visions are the ones that are deprived from politics, and that's very hard. That's why the countries in Europe that have the best policies, like Denmark, they don't rely on politics to make the policy decisions. Another important thing is that the solutions, they need to be linked to systemic societal links, and that's development. So any climate change policy that is not mainstream into social and economic development will not succeed. And so those are my thoughts. I know this adds to complexity. I can have I don't know how to say that word. I can have time to think about that because I sit in my office. I am not a minister. I don't lead any institution. I just, when I say it doesn't matter to anybody, nobody goes in a demonstration. But I think unless we go beyond this mitigation and adaptation, no, mitigation and fairness and social justice and resiliency and sustainability and health and all these things, and we make a matrix that our solution has to touch many of these points, we won't be providing society with anything that will last, that is sustainable and is accepted to people, because the best solutions are the ones that will be implemented. And many times policies fail because they're not implemented. So with that, I thank you, and some questions. Thank you.